knight e4, Sicilian defense, knight c6 variation, Rossolimo variation, Rossolimo attack, 3 bishop b5 g6, opening line. Knight c3, Sicilian defense, knight c6 variation, Rossolimo variation, Rossolimo attack, 3 bishop b5 g6, opening line. Bishop f5, out of opening book, knight takes c3, would have been in the Sicilian defense, knight c6 variation, Rossolimo variation, Rossolimo attack, 3 bishop b5 g6, opening line. Knight h4. Bishop d7. Bishop d3. f5. E takes f6, en passant. Attacks black's bishop at g7. Knight takes f6. Removes the threat on black's bishop at g7 and black's pawn at d5. Black wins a pawn for a pawn. Material is even. Bishop g5 blocks black's pawn at g6. e6. Knight f3 removes the threat on white's pawn at d4. Queen b6 frees black's knight at f6 from the pin and attacks white's pawn at b2. Knight a4 protects white's pawn at b2 and attacks black's queen. Queen c7 moves it to safety. Rook c1. Slightly better is bishop h4. Rook a e8 leads to knight e5, knight e4, bishop takes e4, d takes e4, rook takes e4, b6, bishop f4, queen b7, knight c3, knight takes e5, bishop takes e5, bishop c6, bishop takes g7, bishop takes e4, bishop takes f8, rook takes f8, knight takes e4, queen takes e4, which wins a rook, 2 bishops, and 2 knights, for a rook, 2 bishops, 2 knights, and a pawn. Better is knight g4, leading to g3, queen d6, bishop f1, h6, bishop e3, e5, knight c5, knight takes e3, rook takes e3, which wins a bishop for a knight. Knight e5 blocks black's pawn at e6. Queen d6. Slightly better is knight e4. Knight c5 threatens black's pawn at b7. Bishop c8 removes the threat on black's pawn at b7. Bishop b5 pins black's knight at c6 and protects white's pawn at d4. Knight e4 attacks white's bishop at g5. Knight takes e4 removes the threat on white's bishop at g5 and attacks black's queen. D takes e4 removes the threat on black's queen. Knight takes c6 attacks black's pawn at a7.